Incense offering.
An incense offering. So they bring the incense offering, and because they bring it out of line, so they immediately pass away. And you'll find in the Chumash, you'll find a lot of talk about why that happens and how it happens. And believe it or not, it's not the topic of today's conversation. We're not going to talk about that. What we will talk about is that in the middle of the celebration of dedication of the temple, two people are called out from the center and asked to take care of cleaning up the mess. Who are those two people? So I'll let you guys go figure that one out. You will need the name, the pasuk, the verse is Leviticus chapter 10, verse 4 and 5. And in verse 4, you'll discover the names of the two fellows who are the ones to have to do this, right? Have you found it?
Yes.
Okay, you found it. Congratulations. And their names are, let me turn back. It's Mishael and Eltzafan. And they are the sons of Uzziel, Uzziel is the uncle of Aaron. Okay, so they are in effect they're cousins of Moshe, of Moses. Right. So they're cousins of Moses, and they are from the Levite tribe. Right. So there is a Kohen, there is a Levi, and there is everybody else. And the Kohen and Levi come from the same tribe, and they are Levites. And being that they are Levites, because they participated in this activity, they won't be able to participate in the rest of the dedication. Since they are Levites, and if they touch the corpse of someone who's passed on, they cannot participate in the rest of the dedication. So effectively, when these two fellows get involved in cleaning up, in taking away the corpse, they actually lose out on the rest of the party. Is that duly noted? Do you guys agree or disagree with me?
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Okay, Emily, someone agrees with me. That's you know a rabbi is doing a bad job when the people agree with him. Is that fair? I don't know. Okay, so the big question is there are tons of mitzvahs that we have a relationship with God. Our relationship with God has two factors. There's a relationship of love and a relationship of fear. Fear is mistranslated. It should really be awe. So there's love and awe of God, right? Both of these result in behavior. When you have an emotion, it results in behavior. The emotion of love results in performance. You do something for someone, whether it be, you might put on tefillin in the morning, or light Shabbos candles on Friday evening, or fast on Yom Kippur. You could do anything, right? Any one of these actions is a result of an emotion. Yesterday, I was in Cherry Log. Cherry Log is kind of a suburb. It's next to LEJ. And LEJ is in North Georgia. It's all the way at the top. And over there, I put mezuzahs up in a house of a family over there. And they said to me, and one of the ladies said, what do you feel when you pray? That was the question. What do you feel when you pray? Now, of course, we don't answer personal questions. So I got out of that one. That was easy, right? But the truth is, what do you feel when you pray? And you're meant to feel something, right? So we spoke about how an emotional relationship with Hashem, with God of love, will result in performance and in action. And it's the same thing here. But my question for you guys today is, can we have can you have picking and choosing amongst the commandments? There are 613 commandments. We get to do about 86 of them without the temple, which is not bad for right now, right? And out of those 86, some of them are more exciting than others. For example, what's an exciting mitzvah? Who has a suggestion? Carlos, what's an exciting mitzvah? Yeah.
Celebrating Shabbat is pretty exciting because you
Okay.
look forward to it during the week.
Awesome. Emily, do you have a suggestion? An exciting activity.
A wedding, an exciting mitzvah?
And a wedding is definitely, I mean, for me, it's exciting. I have a habit of traveling to relatives' weddings. And in fact, during the Corona season, I traveled to at least 2 weddings, I think. And I missed a whole bunch. First cousins. But what can we do? It's Corona after all, right? Okay, so there's lots of exciting mitzvahs. Rabbi Shmuel, you have a suggestion of an exciting mitzvah?
A bris.
A bris, okay. So now I'm going to ask you to be honest and tell us what's a boring mitzvah. Juan, what's a boring mitzvah?
Yom Kippur.
I can't hear you. Say it again.
Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. Okay, that's fair. Emily, do you know what Yom Kippur is?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. On the 10th day of the year, as a day of atonement, we do a 24-hour fast. And it's actually really 26 hours because you started before sunset and you end way after nightfall, right? So it's a lot longer than a day. And typically you spend the whole day in synagogue praying. And there's a massive textbook to read through. It's long. And when you're hungry, it's longer. Okay, so Yom Kippur might be a boring holiday. I'll tell you another boring mitzvah, okay? This one you're hearing from me, but really you're hearing it from the rabbi who told it to me, okay? There is a mitzvah to review the Parsha of the week twice and read a translation into Aramaic, authored by a convert whose name was Onkelos, who was a nephew to the Caesar at the time. And he converted and he became a Jewish scholar. And he wrote a translation into Aramaic. And so there is a custom to read over the Chumash of the week, the Torah portion of the week, twice, each verse twice, and then once in the Aramaic original. So for people like you and I, this is boring because we do it so absent-mindedly, because you can barely understand. I mean, the Hebrew, I'm trained to understand. I practiced reading Hebrew for a long time already, right? And then the Onkelos translation, that's in a foreign tongue. I barely understand the word of it, right? But there you go, we read it over. So I had a teacher once who told us that that's a boring mitzvah. Okay, fair, we'll let him go. We won't give him a hard time for saying that a mitzvah is boring, right? No judgment. Okay, so the big question that I'm posing to you today is, can you pick and choose between mitzvahs? Some of them are going to be exciting, and some of them are going to be boring. Hanukkah and Yom Kippur, right? Bris Milah, a circumcision party, that's exciting for someone, I'm not sure who, right? And a wedding, and a wedding versus Yom Kippur, or I don't know, something else. Pick.
Shooing away the mother bird.
Shooing away the mother bird. I mean, that's a major thrill, by the way. It's so rare. It's so rare. How often do you get to do that? So it's so rare, it's exciting. I remember, I wasn't in Australia at the time, but I remember this made international Jewish news, okay? International Jewish news. We're talking about a community of multiple millions of people, tens of millions of people, and everyone knew about this. There is a mitzvah that when a person has a donkey, and the donkey has a firstborn male offspring, you have to exchange the donkey with a Kohen. You have to give it. Really, it's meant to be given to the Kohen the priest. A priest. You have to give it to It's an interesting thing because in Christianity, a priest is like the rabbi, right? In Judaism, the priest is not like the rabbi. He's more like his job is really to serve in the temple, right? But he doesn't effectively serve in the temple because we don't have a temple today. So the Kohen, the priest, gets he gets certain levels of honor, but he doesn't get much more than that, right? Okay, so one of the honors that he gets is that he is the functionary of this special mitzvah. That if a donkey, mind you, the donkey has to be owned by a Jew. How many Jews own donkeys today? I don't know, right? The donkey has to be owned by a Jew. And then the Jew must give the firstborn donkey to the Kohen, to the priest. And then the priest, and then the Jew buys it back from the Kohen. Okay, and so I remember this made news. There was some Australian Jew that probably went and bought a donkey and bred the donkey until there was the occasion of this mitzvah, and then he made a whole party. It was a major party, and all the famous people of Australian Jewish community came out, and it was a big, dais in the middle of town, and thousands of people in attendance, and they performed this mitzvah, and it was very unique. So you see, there are some mitzvahs that are unique, and those become exciting, right? But then again, if you're a donkey farmer, right, and you have thousands of donkeys, right, so you're going to have lots of opportunities to do this mitzvah. So at some point, it might become the B word. It might be boring. So the big question is, are you allowed to pick and choose? So I will tell you that there is the Talmud. The Talmud tells us. You know what the Talmud is? Okay, so the Talmud, there is a line in the Talmud which says, in a situation where an active and passive mitzvah coincide, if it is possible to fulfill both, that is ideal. If not, let the active mitzvah override the passive mitzvah. Okay, so generally, we will say, this page is missing here, it's okay. Okay, so generally we will say that an active mitzvah is one performed out of love. You do an active mitzvah because you want to create relationship. On the other hand, a passive mitzvah will be one that you're told not to do something. For example, we're told not to violate the Shabbos. So you don't have to do anything to not violate Shabbos. You just have to sit in one place. Don't do anything, and you will have kept the mitzvah of not violating the Shabbos. So the opposite of an active mitzvah is a passive mitzvah. So what happens? What happens next? So this rabbi, Reish Lakish, tells us you should prefer to perform a mitzvah rather than avoid doing another one. And if you can't do both, then just do the active mitzvah. And from this we discover the lesson that some are done out of love and some of them are done out of awe. Okay, fair. Emily, you with me? Do you disagree yet?
No.
No? Gee whiz. If you don't disagree, it means either I'm not explaining well enough, right? At which point you're not confident enough to say, like, that doesn't make sense, right? Or I'm just not entertaining enough, and then you're probably not listening. It makes sense. It makes sense. Okay, Professor Blumenthal, if a professor makes sense, are they doing a good job?
Yes, I have to say so. If you're not making sense, you're not doing anybody any good.
Okay, you
Right.
let me off this time. Okay.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
So this brings us to the conversation. Now that we've had it, right? We've said, let's find a biblical time where someone had to pass up a mitzvah to do another. Okay, so all of you honored guests are invited to explore the 5 books of Moses and find such an example. The person who prepared this curriculum for us already found one example, and he found it in a local example of our Parsha, and that is the two sons, the two sons of Aaron, right, who the two sons of Aaron that brought Nadav and Avihu, they brought the sacrifice they weren't meant to, and then they passed away. And so what happens? You can't have a corpse in the temple area because it's impure. So what do you need to do? You need to clear it out. But this is a special day. It's the day of dedication. It's the final day of preparing the temporary temple for being to become a permanent one. And on this day, these two fellows choose to break the rules. Okay, so now they have to be cleaned up. The mess has to be put away. So what do? We volunteer 2 people to do it. Effectively, though, because we volunteered them to do it, they lost their opportunity in participating in the rest of the holiday, and the rest of the fun. which means that they're losing out on the good times. And so your question should be, well, why did we volunteer them? We should have volunteered somebody else. Why did we get these two guys to do it? Let anybody do it. I could have done it, right? Any one of you guys could have been the ones to do it. Why did it have to be people who could have participated in this day? Fair question. Juan has a suggestion. Go for it.
They used to be a Kohen, so they don't have to be in contact with dead bodies. But the temple has Levites serving right there that probably were able to do the job. So I still don't understand why.
So Juan, you're suggesting that these people were able to go ahead and do it because they were just available. So you may as well use them. Is that what you're saying?
If you are a Kohen, you can't take contact with the dead bodies.
Right. But in this case, they do.
They do because they used to be a pretty special day, pretty rushed situation, and they used to be a pretty close family of the dead guy. So they are pretty much cousins. So
right. Okay, so you want to say that given that they're relatives, so we apply the allowance for a relative to be the one to take away, to remove the body of the person who's passed away. Is that what you're saying?
Probably is. It's probably what the Torah tried to tell us.
Okay.
Are they in fact Kohen? Are they in fact Kohens? These are cousins of Aaron.
Yeah.
The sense I have is that they are. My sense is that they are the closest relatives to the two dead men, the closest relatives who are not Kohens. Like, so Aaron and Moses couldn't do it,
right? Because
they're Kohens, but so it fell to the next closest relatives who could.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, but okay. It's not from the. I guess the lineage is not clear to me.
I think that you're going in a good direction. I personally think you're going in a good direction, and I think Emily agrees with you. Does she? Yeah, she does. Okay, good. I'll get it. Easy. Concluded. Okay. Pay attention if you take a look at what Rashi says. I don't know how you guys would see the Rashi because it's not in English. I'll tell you what he says. Rashi tells us to take an example. If you had a bride on her wedding day, right, and someone passed away, someone from the family of the bride, right, passed away, what should you do? You should immediately take care of the one who's passed on, right? Remove them from the area so that we don't ruin the bride's special day. Okay, Rashi makes that point, and he makes a correlation with that, with such an idea to our situation where we're all celebrating the inauguration of the temple, and then nevertheless, and these guys pass away, so we have to clean them up, we have to remove them. But effectively what happens is that we're passing up one mitzvah. Someone has to give away one mitzvah for another mitzvah. Who are the people that have to give it away? It's the two nephews of Moses and of Aaron. They have to give away the opportunity of serving in the Mishkan for that week. They have to give it away so that they can take care of it. So now you're going to say, maybe these guys feel bad. And I think this is a very, very relevant point for all of us, right? Sometimes we get landed with an opportunity. We think we're going to have the limelight. We're going to be in the best place. And then we end up doing back-end work. Okay. Do you know what Rabbi Markovits does with most of his time? Back-end work, right? I have to run the CRM. I don't get to speak to people every day. Sometimes I just have to, log information and prepare reports do fundraising and who knows what, right? I don't always get to be out here like I am today in Milledgeville, right? Or yesterday in North Georgia. I don't always have that opportunity, right? So sometimes we have to pass up one opportunity for another opportunity. Sometimes we need to say, there's this major thing happening, but I'm going to pass up on that to be here, right? Fair? And when that happens, you could feel bad. And you could say, hey, this doesn't feel good. I want to be in the limelight right now. I want to be on the ground. I want to be making things happen. I want to be in the classroom. I don't know. I want to be on the construction site, making sure that things are working. But sometimes you have to get down to the papers and check that the blueprints are all right. Okay. So when we're facilitating the next experience, are we missing out or are we part of it in a different way? Did I say that well? Could have said it better, right? You guys aren't responding.
I feel like you.
What do you think about it?
But in a different way.
Emily, you're like afraid to talk because it's on Zoom. Is that what's going
No,
on?
I agree.
You agree?
I can see the application in my work as well, having to do back-end work to make the next mitzvah happen for someone else.
That's it. You see? Here we go. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Did you guys see what Emily said?
Yeah.
You did? Wow, I didn't know the microphone was so strong. Okay. So there you go. So there you have it. So this is normal, right? So let's say it like this way. If you think about it, for a Levite, to remove the bodies was actually part of their job, right? The Levite's role was to serve and protect the Mishkan. By burying the bodies and preserving the atmosphere of the Mishkan, these two fellows were just doing their job. Most of the other guys were doing it in the conventional way, in the normal way, by serving and rejoicing. Mishael and Eltzafan, they did their job as a Levite as well, just in a different way, right? They experienced it differently. Are you guys ready for a sentence in Yiddish? I'm going to quote to you an original talk of the Rebbe in Yiddish, okay? Found in his edited works, volume 17, page 104. I'm going to talk to you in Yiddish and I'll translate it, okay? So hold on. Nor das is nit an avoida in dem Eufen von Chiyuv, nor in dem Eufen von Shlila. A Reus zu nehmen von Mishkan Sachen was sein Mevalvel, so der avoida kedaboi. Did you guys know that's my third language? Okay, 3 languages. Carlos beat me because he already speaks many more than 3. Maybe Juan beat me too. Professor, do you speak more than 1 language?
A bit of French.
A bit of French. He says it nonchalantly. A bit of French. Easy. Dr. Professor Rabbi Shmuel speaks French. Okay, good. Emily, do you speak more than 1 language?
Only a very bit of French and a very bit of Spanish.
What's with French? How do you guys learn French?
I lived there for a while.
Oh,
More
yeah.
exciting.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely more exciting. I mean, when I was in Paris, I didn't learn a word. My mother did all the speaking. I didn't have to. Okay, so what does the Yiddish mean? It says burying the deceased was not an active doing mitzvah, like a service. Rather, it was a negative action. What does it mean, a negative one? They would have to clean something up. They had to remove something so that it wouldn't disturb something else. Say, for example, what's that guy who stands outside the pub? The bouncer, right? The bouncer. I mean, you and I, we know I don't go to the pub all that often, right? But the bouncer, do you think he's not having fun? He's having tons of fun. He's just doing his part, right? By not being inside, by being outside and making sure that things stay safe, he's having a good time. He's participating in his unique way. Okay. So what you should respond, all of you thinking individuals should say back to me, yeah, it's true, they're doing the back end, they're doing their part, they're doing their service, but they got the less exciting part of the activity. Is that fair? Is that a fair question? Okay, do me a favor. I don't have a clock on my screen anymore. Can someone tell me the time?
It's 6:40.
6:40. I have 20 more minutes to eat your ears off. Okay, we'll manage. You guys will manage. Okay. If you have questions or comments, make sure to interrupt. I am patient, as you might be aware. Okay, so who had the question I just asked? Who asked it? Who wants to know why they got the more boring of two jobs? The back end stuff is less exciting than being out there in the front. So why do I have to do the back end stuff? Let somebody else do it. Right?
Well, yeah, again, because they're the closest relatives to the
Okay.
deceased who are not going to be, who are not, who are not Kohens.
Okay.
And it's a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah for the close relatives to attend to the body, right? I mean,
that's true too. Let's give it a bit more of an emotional spin, less of a logical spin, but more of an emotional spin. Do you think that they felt good after having to clean up the temple? Like they effectively couldn't come into the celebration. So think about it this way: there's loud, roaring music, everybody's dancing, right? And they're on the outside because they can't come in anymore. Do you think they felt good about that? How can they leave that experience feeling good? We need to create for them some kind of validation, some kind of emotional validation that'll give them the good feeling, even though they had the worst half of the experience. Are you guys in for this? Juan, you had a comment.
Yeah, in my book say that they used to be an ordinary Kohanim.
Oh, okay. So what you're telling us is that they were Kohanim and not Leviim. They were Kohanim, they were priests and not Levites. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, they did say that Torah made this exception that day, and they permit ordinary Kohanim to do the job.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that they made an exception that day to allow the Kohen to remove the bodies. They should have asked somebody else.
Kohen Gadol. It should be an ordinary Kohanim. Kohen, an ordinary Kohen.
Juan, now you're stumping me. This time you're blowing me away.
Yeah, it's page.
Okay, so the big question that we have. Ramban. Boom. You have the secret text of the Ramban. Great scholar, by the way. Great scholar. Only because he's quoted in this curriculum, I'm going to tell you some information about him. Somewhere over here. You want to know about Ramban? Have you ever heard of Maimonides? Never. Really? Okay. Maimonides is a different conversation because it's a different guy. We're talking about Nachmanides, okay? He was a son, as it happens, of a son or a nephew or a grandson, one of the two. He's a relative, an immediate relative of Maimonides, and he lived in 1194. He was a scholar, philosopher, author, and physician, born in Spain, and was a leader of the Iberian Jewry. In 1263, he was summoned by King James of Aragon. Where's Aragon? In Spain, right? I think so. That's it. We can be geographers together. Okay. He was summoned by King James of Aragon to a public disputation with Pablo Cristiani, a Jewish apostate. Okay. Though Nachmanides was the clear victor of the debate, he had to flee Spain because of the resulting persecution. He moved to Israel and helped reestablish communal life in Jerusalem. He authored a classic commentary on the Pentateuch, which is the 5 books of Moses, and the commentary on the Talmud. And they probably quoting the very same thing. Anyway, so what you just said came from the same fellow. Okay, you're a well-read guy, Juan. We're proud of you. Okay, very good. So now, so the question that we're dealing with right now is how can some people be excited about jobs that may feel like they're just cleaning up somebody else's mess? Now, I don't know if you have the same feelings, but in dorm life, you always end up having to clean up your roommate's dirty stuff. It's just how it works. And at least that's how it worked in my days. And I did 15 years of dorm life. So I can tell you with quite not 15, 13, but I can tell you that's how it goes, generally speaking. Let's take another example. There is a Jewish group of volunteers, two distinct groups. One of them is called Chaverim, which means friends, and another one is called Hatzala. Hatzala, 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 and the other one is Chaverim, Haverim, Haverim. Okay, both of these organizations are completely volunteer, and they're usually available in very dense Jewish populated areas like New York, like LA, like I don't know, elsewhere, maybe in Israel they've got them too. And they do different things. So Hatzala is an ambulance service. So it's a Jewish ambulance service. It's completely run by Jews. And they have like something like, if the NYPD can get to you in something like 3 minutes, Hatzala gets to you in 30 seconds, which is impressive. And it's a good time bracket to save someone's life if they're having a cardiac arrest, God forbid. Okay. The other voluntary organization is Haverim. They are guys who will come out in the middle of the night to fix your popped tire. And I'll tell you this, when I was dating my wife, we were both living in New York at the time, and I took her out to New York, to Manhattan. We were in Brooklyn, and we get over the Brooklyn Bridge, and we're just driving through, it's probably like the end of Chinatown. I can see it, but I don't know if you guys know New York as well as I recall it. Professor Blumenthal knows the world.
Chinatown. Oh, yes.
You know Chinatown, okay?
Oh, yes.
Somewhere right there off the bridge, the tire popped, okay? And here I am, I'm dating my wife. But of course, we weren't married yet. So there's a certain level of awkwardness, and especially in our community where you date for marriage. So, we didn't, we didn't know each other otherwise, just aside from our conversations. And here we are sitting in this car, waiting for the guy, waiting to figure out a solution. So we called Chaverim, and they came and saved the day. And the guy wouldn't even accept a tip. You understand that? You understand what that means? He came probably from Williamsburg, I assume. Okay, and he wouldn't accept a tip for fixing my tire. That's impressive, right? Would you accept a tip for fixing someone's tire? Okay, I advise you accept it. Feels good. It helps the giver. The giver feels good too. I guess it's more remarkable when you don't accept it, right? Fair. Okay. So could you find a moment or an emotion for the guy who's volunteering in the middle of the night to go and do something? Could you find him feeling good? Does he feel good about it, or does he hate his job? Do you think Mr. Hatzala member who's out there in the middle of the night dealing with, the typical call, which is probably a stub toe gone wrong, right? Do they feel good about it? The only way to know is, of course, to ask them. But we can't ask them now. So we will have to create for them an experience of feeling good. And the suggestion that I'd like to make is that them and others, and especially these two young men who had to remove the bodies out of the Mishkan, they felt good about their sacrifice because they knew that from what they were doing, that's how they were enabling the celebration in Shul, in the celebration in the temple. And so if you take, for example, another example is, we have to have security outside the synagogue, of course. So the guy who's volunteering on the security team, is he participating in services? Or does he not get points for coming if we count in points? And I'm going to suggest that he does get a certain level of points, in a way, say it that way. He gets recognition because even though he's not inside reading from the book and swaying back and forth and doing all those activities, he's enabling tens of other people to participate. Okay, so that's a good example of the same thing. Another example is, and we've spoken about this in the past, on the altar, there's effectively going to be a lot of ashes, right? Because as you burn stuff, it turns into ashes. Nothing disappears. it becomes something else. So there is a special service in the temple to clean up those ashes. The guy who has to clean up those ashes, does he feel like he is doing a mitzvah? It's a fair question. And the answer is, not only does he feel like that, the Rambam, the first codifier of Jewish law, tells us that lifting the ashes from the altar is an active mitzvah. And there's a verse for that, he shall lift up the ashes. And this job is a priestly job, and the guy who does it the guy who merits to do it, better said, needs to go into a mikvah. He has to purify himself before he does it. He has to put on the special uniform for doing it, and he has to clean his hands and feet in preparation of doing it. And with all of that, this guy is effectively going to miss half of the daily service by having to leave town, by having to take it all outside. Yet, nevertheless, he is still part of it as if he did his thing. Okay, and here we come to the crux of the conversation. We have to recognize what is our personal roles in the lives that we live. Some of us are back-end people, and some of us are front-end people. Some of us as back-end people feel bad. Why do I have to be the back-end guy? I want to be a front-end guy. I want to be doing more front-end activities. And you can allow yourself to feel less than because you're doing all of that. Fair? But when you recognize that what you're doing is actually not just enabling, but it is a vital part of the service. It's an active mitzvah. It's a vital part of this. You recognize that your part is so much more valuable. It's not just something that needs to be done, so I'll do it and whatever. No, it's a very important, vital part of the entire activity is making sure that this is taken care of. And let's see if we can find a source for this idea that I'm sharing with you. And here it goes. Okay, so it tells the first Rebbe of Chabad, the first Hasidic master, tells us an idea. When a king wishes to occupy a pleasant living place, he first instructs the chambers to be cleaned from all filth and disarray, and thereafter you put in all the good stuff. Emily, is that how it happened here? First you have to clean up the mess, and then you can put in the good stuff? Okay, so that's live from the Hillel house. First we had to clean out all of the debris of the previous tenants or whatever was here before us. And then we bring in the good stuff, like the director's desk and the mezuzahs and the table tennis table. All of these things, right? So in the same thing in our religious lives as well. God put Adam, the first person, into the garden, and he put him there for a specific purpose. He put him there to work it and to guard it. Both of these things are going to be vital. You have to work it and you have to guard it. The working it is the active mitzvahs, and the guarding it is going to be the passive mitzvahs, which tells you that doing your part, the active parts and the passive parts, are both just as important. So important that they're considered to be equal, even in the way it's presented to Adam in the garden. You have to guard and you have to keep. And so it is, my friends, a blessing for all of you. We should all recognize. Oh, those, Rabbi Shmuel, I didn't see what you wrote to us. How do I see it?
It's a well-known quote from the British poet John Milton. You may have heard that before.
And what is it? Can you read it to us again?
Yes. They also serve who only stand and wait. In other words, the people behind the scenes serve in just in the way that you're describing.
Exactly. Well said. I like this. Thank you, John Milton, and thank you, Professor. Now maybe you should get a position in the English department too, in the literature. Okay, so there you go. So here you have it. And so this is my blessing for all of us, that each of us, in whichever position that we are in, we think that we may be back end, we might be front end. We need to recognize that we are the main player. Each of us, in whatever position we are the main person, the most vital person that can only we can do what we can do. Fair? And so I thank you all for joining me for a class today. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, Dr. Professor Robert Blumenthal.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Comments and questions, go for it. Maybe no questions. Juan, any questions?
Yes, I have just
They don't ask me.
one question. Actually, Hashem ordered to Aaron and their survivor sons that don't let grow his hair and don't whatever don't these 3 months don't feel anything for whatever happened. This is the only part that I don't understand. This, don't let grow the hair and don't break the
You mean rend your garments. He says, don't